Hi there. Have you ever thought about starting your own business, but sometimes you get held up in all the little details and aren't sure where to start or if you'll or trying to get everything perfect before you start? Let me give you some insight on how I've done this several times when I wasn't really ready to go yet. Hi, I'm just sitting up here in the campground in my RV, and this is how I look in real life. This is my RV life. I'm working on my latest painting. I'm super excited about this series I'm doing. But I wanted to kind of just give you some insight, especially if you're thinking about starting your own little business. So many people are doing it now because the job market's just crazy and all the things. So let me just tell you a few businesses I've started over the years when most people would have. In fact, people did tell me that I couldn't do it or I wasn't ready or I didn't have everything perfect or whatever. Okay, so let's start with number one. My first business, I had a daycare center, but this is how I started. I quit my job because I couldn't stand leaving my little girl in daycare. I was only 20, 19 or 20. And my husband and I lived in a single wide mobile home and not a nice one in a rundown RV park. But I just couldn't stand leaving her. And so I put back, this was back in the late 80s. So I put an ad in the paper and I ended up babysitting just one little boy. And that just kind of grew from there. Then I was babysitting two little boys. Then I was babysitting three kids. And then I started developing a curriculum and doing a preschool program and all the things. And within a year, I had six kids every day, and I was making enough that my husband and I were able to pool our resources and buy our first house. And then we converted the garage at that house into a daycare center, and I grew to about 12 or 15 kids, and I had a part time employee. And then I had a waiting list. And so I rented a building that would hold 30 kids. And anyway, long story short, at the end of the 12 years of me doing childcare, I had 65 kids and 13 full time employees. So it just started. I wasn't ready. I didn't have anything. I just had my little girl's toys and started babysitting a child kind of her age. And it just kind of grew from there. And then the next business, I kind of started it, but my husband and I ran it together, and he still has that business now. It was an international equipment sales company. And I started it right after we were bankrupt from another business venture that we had done. I started it from a little laptop sitting in my mom's living room because we had lost our home and everything. And I created a sales company and it grew from there. We Once my husband got on board and we really had both of our energy in it, it went from nowhere. We didn't have anything. We just had a little computer and I built a website. I bought a book that said build a website in a weekend. And I built a website and I put stuff out there, and it was used equipment we were selling, and I was kind of brokering it from other people. I didn't have a warehouse. I didn't have anything. I was just basically buying it cheap from somebody and then immediately selling it, like brokering it. And that business grew. And within a year, our bankruptcy was long behind us. We were buying a new house. Life was good. And we ran that business for years out of our basement. And now that business is a multi-million dollar sales company. It's worldwide. He has locations all over the country with warehouses and all the things, but it started from just an idea. And then my next business, my hair salon, I went to hair school. This was the only one I actually kind of prepared for. I went to hair school, immediately graduated out of the hair school, and immediately went into chair rental. Now, anyone that's ever been through cosmetology school knows that you know absolutely nothing when you graduate hair school. But I rented a chair and I started doing hair and I started watching YouTube videos and learning as I go. I remember the first time a young gal sat in my chair and asked for a balayage. I had never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. I ran into the back room and I, looked up a video of what balayage was. I thought, I can do this. And I went out and I did her hair. And I was nervous and I was scared, and her hair turned out like crap. But you know what? I offered to do it again for free, gave me a couple of days to practice. She came back in, and at that time I wasn't charging much, and she was happy with the results, and it all worked out. And was I ready? No, but I just did it. And I ended up 2 years after graduating hair school and watching videos and learning as I went and doing it. I opened up a luxury salon that was gangbusters. It went great. I had 11 employees. Everything was going great. Of course, the pandemic took that from me, but that's fine. So I was sitting here um, thinking, because I'm still doing hair part time and just kind of figuring out what I want to do next. And my life is changing, and I don't really fit into that mold anymore. I still do great hair and I have great clients, but you know, showing up with the makeup and all the things and having to do that isn't really fitting into my RV style of living anymore. And so I'm looking for other ways to go into semi-retirement and fund that. And I have really gotten back into painting. I did it back in high school. I won some art awards and stuff, but I really haven't been able to use my artistic ability other than like graphic arts and stuff on the computer, building my own websites and my own business cards and that kind of thing. But I haven't really been able to be just freely creative. And I started this little series of these farm animals that I'm painting, and I started a snail mail club that I'm working on. And I thought, this could be a business. This could be more than just a hobby. And I'm going to start it right here from this little table in my RV. And might be fun to check back in with me to see how it's going. But the main reason I was doing this video is because I was sitting here thinking about how I've done this over and over and over again. And there's so many people out there that are scared to take that step. Now, I've taken some pretty bold, dangerous steps by, quitting a job or something like that. I've experienced bankruptcy. I've experienced ups and downs. If that's a little much for you, it doesn't mean that you can't start something in your spare time and grow it from there. You know, don't be afraid. You don't have to have everything perfect. You don't have to have the perfect website and the logo. And that's all the fun stuff to me, is to creating that part of it. But, if you've got something you want to do or sell, just start doing it. Start small. Start where you are now with what you have now, and it'll grow. If it's meant to be, it'll grow. And honestly, because I've started other ventures that didn't pan out, but I was glad that I didn't invest money or a bunch of time into something that wasn't really going to take off. So sometimes it's better to start with less where you're at now and see if it's something that's going to take off. See if it's something you're really going to enjoy. I've started things that I didn't even really like after I got into it a little bit. So don't feel like you have to have all your ducks in a row and have everything perfect before you start. Start just kind of doing it on the side, or whatever you want to do, and don't expect things to happen overnight. I've been pretty lucky with things working quickly for me, but I worked hard, and it was out of desperation and hard work. But don't get discouraged. Just keep trucking along, especially if you have income coming in and you want to start a side business that can turn into a full thing. Just start with what you've got. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I hope you have a great day. It is going to be hot in the campground today. I'm looking forward to the weekend. We'll talk to you soon.